What if the future of AI wasn't just, smarter programs, but actual intelligent entities that could act on their own?
Hmm.
We're diving deep today into this idea of AI agents, these digital beings with goals. They can navigate the world, interact, achieve things.
Yeah, and this deep dive, it's got a pretty unique perspective. We're actually tracing how these AI agents evolved through the eyes of someone who was right there, in the early days of AI research.
Oh, interesting.
So our sources, they give this fascinating firsthand story of the initial excitement and then the kind of unexpected twists and turns the field took, and maybe why AI agents are suddenly such a huge buzzword again.
Exactly. So our mission today really is to chart that whole journey for you, from those first ideas, maybe back when they were just concepts, right up to the cutting edge stuff we're seeing now,
Yeah, understand what they are, how we got here.
and what it all might mean down the line. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's unpack this by going way back to the beginning.
Well, what's fascinating right off the bat is how cyclical AI research can be. Our source talks about being at early OpenAI, maybe around 2016.
Okay.
And back then, agents weren't just some side project. No, they were like a central focus, the main thing.
And language models.
Not like today, no. All the energy, or a lot of it, was about creating AI that could actively do things in an environment, operate.
And that initial spark, that came from successes in games, right?
Yeah.
Like Atari, that seems logical.
Yeah.
Games of these sort of neat structured worlds.
Precisely. Yeah, seeing AI master games like Atari, that really fired up the imagination. Could we build more versatile agents?
Right.
And our source even talks about their own project back then called World of Bits.
World's bits.
Yeah. The idea was to move beyond games,
Mm.
create AI that could do useful stuff on a computer, like
Okay.
actually use a keyboard and mouse, navigate websites, that kind of thing.
Wow. Okay, so trying to get an AI back in 2016 to just, I don't know, order a pizza online
Yeah.
by clicking and typing. It sounds simple now, maybe, but the speaker really stresses how tough that was, the tech hurdles.
Oh, absolutely. They said something like the only tool they really had was reinforcement learning, like a hammer.
So trying to make everything fit that model.
Kind of, and making even, basic web interactions work reliably. It was incredibly difficult. The tech just wasn't quite there for handling the messiness of the real internet versus a clean game environment.
So they published work on it, but it wasn't a home run.
That's how they put it, yeah. They published a paper, but they're pretty upfront that it wasn't like super amazing. The foundational tools, the methods, they just hadn't caught up enough to make real headway on those kinds of tasks.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting to me, because the field then took this like sharp turn.
Uh-huh.
They basically decided to hit pause on AI agents and focus on language models instead.
Wow.
That seems like a massive shift.
It really was a significant pivot. And our source also mentions a brief look into self-driving cars, too.
Ah, okay. Still that lure of physical autonomy?
Right. But the main point from this early phase is how different it was from now. Back then, reinforcement learning, trial and error, rewards, penalties, that was the go-to method for agents.
Yeah.
But now, you see lots of people building really impressive agents, often without relying heavily on RL. It's not how they expected it to unfold back then.
Okay, so let's fast forward, jump to today. Suddenly, AI agents are everywhere again. What's driving this huge resurgence?
Well, the current massive interest, as our source sees it, is really tied into this widespread belief, or maybe hope, that AGI, artificial general intelligence.
The dream of human-level AI.
Exactly. That it's probably going to emerge in the form of an AI agent. Or maybe, multiple agents.
Multiple agents, like working together.
Yeah, the vision gets pretty grand. You hear ideas about agents collaborating inside organizations, or even forming whole civilizations of digital entities. It's inspiring stuff.
It definitely captures the imagination, no doubt.
Yeah.
But the speaker also injects some caution, right? This idea of the decade-long project phenomenon. What's that about?
Right. So the core idea there is, look, it's often pretty easy to imagine an AI doing something cool. You can even build a demo that looks impressive.
Okay.
But turning that cool demo into a reliable, robust, actual product that works in the real world, that often takes way, way longer than you think. Many years.
Oh, you've definitely seen that pattern before.
Yeah.
Self-driving cars feel like the poster child for this.
Totally. Compelling demos for years and years. But getting true large-scale autonomy out there safely and reliably, it's just a much harder, longer slog than maybe people thought initially.
VR is maybe another one. Virtual reality.
Good example. Yeah, VR demos have looked amazing for ages, but making it a mainstream, everyday thing. Still a work in progress, requiring loads of time and refinement.
So the suggestion is AI agents might be in that same category.
That's the idea. The potential is huge. The demos can be mind-blowing, but anyone working on agents should probably be prepared for the long haul. It's likely a marathon, not a sprint.
That's a really valuable piece of perspective, I think, amidst all the excitement. Now, another really cool angle that came up is this renewed look towards neuroscience for inspiration,
Uh-huh. Looking at the brain again.
which isn't totally new for AI, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, early deep learning itself, the very foundation of so much modern AI, was heavily inspired by just the basic idea of neurons in the brain, how they connect.
Right, the neural network.
Exactly. But what seems to be happening now is a deeper dive. People are looking at more complex brain structures, entire cognitive architectures, to figure out how you build a complete digital entity.
So not just the basic building blocks, but how the whole system works together.
Yeah. How do you give an agent more human-like cognitive tools? The speaker talks about needing a potential system for planning and reflection.
A potential system. What does that actually mean?
It's basically the idea that an agent needs a way to think ahead, right? To weigh possibilities, learn from what it did before, just like we do.
Okay.
So to build that, researchers are looking at actual brain bits for clues. Like, how does the brain do planning? How does it do reflection?
And there's some fascinating analogies they're drawing. The hippocampus, for example, that's linked to memory, isn't it? How does that translate to AI?
Yeah, think of the hippocampus like the brain's filing system for memories. It tags them, organizes them for later recall.
Okay.
So for AI agents, people are exploring similar ideas. How do you create effective memory traces? Maybe using embeddings, these numerical ways of representing information.
Right, they capture meaning and relationship.
Exactly. Using those to index experiences so the agent can retrieve relevant memories, learn from the past effectively. It's about building that internal history.
And what about things like the visual or auditory cortex?
Yeah.
We kind of know how to get AI to see or hear, but it sounds like there's more to it.
Well, yeah, we've got AI that can process images and sound, sure. But the way the brain actually interprets that makes sense of the constant stream of sensory data, integrates it. That's incredibly complex.
So looking deeper into how those areas function for more sophisticated processing.
That seems to be the direction, finding inspiration for richer sensory understanding in agents.
Then there's the thalamus,
Right.
which gets described as potentially the seat of consciousness even, and a mediator between competing parts of the brain. That sounds super relevant for agent decision-making.
Absolutely. The thalamus is like this central hub, integrating information from all over. And crucially, it seems to play a role in deciding which signals, which competing urges or plans get priority.
Like different brain systems wanting different things.
Kind of. The source mentions this analogy of different entities in the brain sort of fighting for the microphone. The thalamus helps manage that, leading to coherent action.
So that could be a model for how an AI agent weighs conflicting goals or information.
Potentially, yes. A blueprint for resolving internal conflicts and making unified decisions. It's a really rich area for inspiration.
And the speaker even points to a book, Incognito, The Secret Lives of the Brain, by David Eagleman, for more ideas. It really feels like this blend of AI and neuroscience is becoming critical again.
It does feel like a return, but maybe on a higher level. It started with the neuron, the basic unit. Now we're looking at these larger systems, these cognitive functions, for the next leap in building capable agents.
Okay, so this brings us right up to the present. And the speaker makes this pretty bold claim that the people actually building AI agents right now, they're the ones at the absolute cutting edge of AI capability.
It's a strong statement, isn't it? Especially with all the focus on the big language model labs.
Right, so what's the thinking there?
Well, the reasoning as presented is quite interesting. It's basically that while the LLM labs have done amazing things training huge models, the sort of core principles and maybe even the limits within that specific paradigm, they're becoming better understood inside those labs.
Meaning they've tried a lot of things already.
Exactly. They have this vast internal knowledge base of what works, what doesn't, why things failed. It's still advancing, obviously, but maybe the path is a bit more defined internally.
Okay, whereas with AI agents, it's newer territory, more wide open.
That's the argument. It's a field where things feel less settled. So when a new paper comes out with a fresh approach, the speaker mentions something called moon calls, just as an example that got people talking.
Right.
It feels genuinely novel. It has the potential to really shift the needle on what's possible because there's just more unexplored space.
So it's the rapid innovation, the competition, the feeling that big breakthroughs could come from anywhere.
Precisely. It's characterized by this very active exploration, lots of different researchers and startups trying different things. Because it's relatively newer, at least in its current form compared to LLMs, there's maybe more low-hanging fruit, more potential for unexpected jumps.
So that combination, the novelty, the potential impact, that's why they're seen as being at this edge of capability.
That's the perspective offered, yeah. It's definitely an inspiring position for anyone working in that space, thinking they might be right at the forefront of the next major transformation.
It really underscores how dynamic AI research is. Leadership can shift as new ideas take hold.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up our deep dive here on AI agents. We've seen this cycle, right? Early excitement, then a shift away towards language models.
And now this powerful resurgence, driven partly by the dream of AGI, but also enabled by better AI tools and this fresh look at neuroscience for ideas.
And we also got that important reminder. Building these things properly, making them truly capable and reliable in the real world. That's probably a long-term game.
Yeah, a marathon. But the inspiration from the brain, from how we think and act, that gives a really rich direction to explore.
Absolutely. So hopefully you now have a much better grasp of the history, the journey, and the really exciting place AI agents are in right now. So maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. With things moving so fast in AI agents, and with these fascinating parallels to the brain, what might be the most surprising capabilities we see emerge? Or maybe, what are the really critical ethical questions or considerations that we haven't even thought of yet as these digital minds evolve?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Definitely a field packed with potential and some really profound questions for the future.